This video is sponsored by DistroKid. This is IDX Intelligent Dynamics, a new compressor plugin from Waves that's a bit different from your typical compressor. And that's because it's a frequency-dependent compressor. Unlike a standard compressor which applies the same gain reduction across all frequencies, IDX Intelligent Dynamics dynamically responds to the energy in specific frequency ranges uniquely. In other words, it compresses each frequency differently. Essentially, it identifies and balances tonal energy in a way that preserves the track's natural tone while reducing the less useful frequency energy. It's almost like having a smart EQ and a compressor built into one. Similar to a multiband compressor even, but with a lot of the work already done for you. In this video, we're going to explore how it works and see if it delivers on its promise in the context of a vocal mix specifically. And as a heads up, you can get IDX Intelligent Dynamics for free right now during Black Friday to Cyber Monday weekend. That's from Friday, November 29th until Monday, December 2nd. All you have to do is hit the link that I'm going to leave down in the pinned comment and description below. You definitely don't want to miss out on this because last year Waves gave away Silk Vocal and the year before they gave away Little 2, both of which are in the store right now for a fee. IDX Intelligent Dynamics will be no different, so don't miss out on this limited time offer to get it for free while you can. Otherwise, you might regret it later. Waves also has a bunch of great sales going on for the holidays, so now is a great time to pick up some new plugins to inspire you and improve your workflow for the lowest prices you'll see all year round. And no, this is not sponsored by Waves in any way, but they did give me an early look at the plugin so that I can make this video for all of you watching. If you happen to be watching this video after the plugin is no longer free, I'm sorry that you missed out on that. But stick around so you can see IDX in action and get a better idea of if it's worth purchasing at the very least. But before we talk about IDX and its capabilities in full, let's talk about the actual sponsor of today's video, DistroKid. They make getting your music on a stores a breeze with their simple interface, and they pass on 100% of the earnings generated from your music directly to you. The DistroKid also gives you access to helpful tools for content creation and marketing your release, including hyperfollow landing pages, the Visi video generator, and much more. Other distributors make you pay every time you upload something, or they keep a percentage of your earnings, which ultimately ends up costing you more. With DistroKid, you pay a low annual subscription fee that lets you distribute unlimited music for the year, making it much more convenient and less expensive than the other guys. Millions of artists, myself included, love using DistroKid, and I'm sure you will too. You can save 7% off your first year by hitting the link down in the description below. Thank you to DistroKid for sponsoring this video, and now, back to the content. Let's begin with a melodic rap vocal example and exploring how to set up IDX Intelligent Dynamics in place of our usual compressor. Now for me, I typically apply compression early on in my vocal chain, usually after some vocal tuning and some light subtractive EQ, which is mostly focused on filtering. I've already done all of that in this example and committed everything to audio so that we could just apply compression and see what that does. Let's just play this vocal to see exactly what we're starting with.
Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Past tense, put you on a scale, you know you past 10. Claiming that you good but okay. I play, party and poppin', won't stop and dapping your escape.
You can see that there's some words and phrases that poke out a little bit more, and then others are a little bit more subdued. We can also hear these fluctuations in the vocal's forwardness at times, and that's especially telling considering this is in solo mode, out of context with the rest of the instrumental parts of the track. Overall, I will say that there is a good amount of presence regardless, but I think we can use IDX and compression in general to even things out and produce a more consistent sound from top to bottom. With IDX enabled at the start of our vocal chain, let's explore what this would look and sound like. The first thing that I want to point out is pay attention to the meters at the bottom, the input and the output. I'm going to play this again, but let's actually just pay attention to the input specifically and make sure that our vocal has headroom before we start processing altogether.
Past tense, put you on a scale, you know you past 10. Claiming that you good but okay. I play, party and poppin', won't stop and dapping your escape.
So again, getting really loud towards the end, but overall paying attention to the input, we have plenty of headroom, we're not clipping, and there's nothing to worry about there. However, if you're using this in your own situations and you notice that you are clipping, you're gonna have to do something about it before applying this type of processing. You're probably gonna wanna go back into the actual waveform and use clip gain to create some more headroom manually, or perhaps move this to the second insert slot, put another plugin into the first one, and use that as a way to gain stage everything before going into the plugin, just to create headroom once again and avoid clipping. Regardless, assuming that our input gain staging is okay, we can move on to the next step, which is going to be setting our threshold. This is the big knob in the middle right here, and we'll set this up to actually produce some gain reduction within the compressor itself. Now notice as I play the track and do this, the increased reaction we'll get at the top of the interface. You'll actually see the gain reduction taking place in a pink sort of color from the top, which corresponds to the frequencies along the bottom of the interface in blue. And just for good measure, I'll also push it excessively at times just so you can really hear what it's doing and can understand how it's affecting the vocal. So let's set this back to 0. Let's play our loop and dial this in.
Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Past tense, put you on a scale, you know you past 10. Claiming that you good, but okay. I'll play, party and poppin', won't stop and dapping your escape. Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear.
Notice when I pushed it excessively to the maximum, we got an extreme reaction. The level itself didn't seem to change much thanks to the auto gain setting that I left enabled, but you can hear a difference in the tonal balance, with a lot more high end cutting through and a bit less low end, and almost creating this grittier, sort of distorted type of sound. It's not distorted exactly, but it is giving a certain effect of the compressor. However, I ultimately settled on a threshold that's a little bit more in the middle ground here, and you can see and ultimately hear that it doesn't sound as affected, and it's really focusing on reducing these lower mid frequencies from about 125 to 1K. This area is being affected a little bit more drastically than the higher frequencies, and that just goes to show you the uniqueness of this plugin so far and how it's ultimately manipulating each frequency differently from one another. To add a little bit more to this, I can actually use the priority band, which is this white band in the middle, to adjust how those frequencies are manipulated. I can ultimately push them so that they're compressed a bit more drastically, or if I don't like how it's compressing a frequency, I could do the opposite. I could walk back on it and reduce the amount of compression taking place on that frequency. As you can tell, this is very much like an EQ, and I can actually change the shape of this by holding command and clicking. So you can see now I've created a low shelf or a high shelf, or going back to the bell. If you're on a PC, you can hold control and click and it'll achieve the same effect. What's good about this is it could allow us to make a more focused move and ultimately adjust what frequencies are affected by IDX's processing. So let me reset this back to a neutral setting, play the track, and see if we can make some more adjustments.
Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Past tense, put you on a scale, you know you past 10. Claiming that you good, but okay. I'll play, party and poppin', won't stop and dapping your escape. Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Past tense, put you on a scale, you know you past 10.
So this sounds pretty good. You can see that I've ultimately decided to exaggerate the low end a little bit more with this priority band, somewhere around 175, 200 hertz, I'd have to guess, and just creating a little bit more of an exaggerated effect here. It doesn't really sound exaggerated. It's just cleaning up the low end, and this makes sense, especially with my standard process. I typically will compress a vocal, and when I compress it, I do find that the low end starts to creep up a little bit more, introduce some more of that muddiness, and then I'm treating it with a multi-band compressor or even an EQ to ultimately quell those tonal imbalances. However, by doing it this way, I'm ultimately able to treat it in one quick process with the priority band combined with the compression built into IDX. You also saw me sweep up a little bit higher, trying to quell some of that harshness that's popping up, especially around sibilance. I couldn't really nail it down, so I ultimately backed up on that and decided to just focus on the low end instead. I ultimately think just using a de-esser in general would probably be better in this specific example, since that harshness really only popped up during those sibilant phrases. Now, one additional thing with the priority band is there's also a tilt priority band here, which allows me to tilt the band into a specific direction. So I can ultimately, for example, decrease the amount of low-end reduction taking place and increase the amount of high-end production taking place. This is really like a seesaw, as you can tell, with just one point that then obviously tilts from that moment on. I'm not going to use that in this particular case, but this could really help you either exaggerate or undo some of the frequency adjustments taking place because of this process. Now, most compressors will give you access to an attack and a release, but this one is a little bit different, as you can tell. Instead, you have just this one setting called speed. According to Waves, a higher speed setting tends to sound sharper but could come at the expense of the attack. My understanding is that a higher setting is comparable to having a slow attack and release, which might sound smoother, whereas a lower setting is more comparable to a fast attack and release. Let's play the track and adjust this and see where we end up.
Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Past tense, put you on a scale, you know you past 10. Claiming that you good, but okay. I'll play, party and poppin', won't stop and dapping your escape. Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Past tense.
I like where I just moved it, which is just slightly faster than the default setting of 10, but hopefully you could hear the difference between having it be really fast and a lot slower and the difference in the reaction that it's producing. We can then take this a step further by choosing between the hard or soft knee setting. A hard knee results in compression being applied abruptly when the threshold is reached. A soft knee, on the other hand, causes compression to begin well before the threshold is reached. With a soft knee, full compression is not reached until well above the threshold. Ultimately, these will each create a unique sonic character within the vocal and adjust how everything reacts, essentially. If you like a grittier, more aggressive compression sound, then you might lean towards a hard knee setting. On the other hand, if you prefer things to be more gentle and less noticeable, then a soft knee might be more appropriate. But I do want to point out something critical before we audition both. We've been in the soft knee mode this whole time. That means when I switch into hard knee mode, it actually might not produce any gain reduction because of how different it works. Let's actually just play this really quick and evaluate.
Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's it.
As expected, there's no gain reduction taking place in hard knee mode, and that's because hard knee only applies compression once the signal passes the threshold, which it obviously isn't in this case. Soft knee is applying the compression before the threshold is actually breached, and that's why you're able to see that gain reduction taking place earlier on. Therefore, to use hard knee, I'll actually need to adjust my threshold to produce some gain reduction. So to make that easier, I'm actually going to create a copy of this. I'll leave it on hard knee. I'll put this one back to soft, and on the hard knee version, I'm going to just dial in some settings and adjust things to try to create a more accurate comparison. But of course, it is going to produce a different reaction. So let's try that and see what happens.
Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's it. Decide who you're gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Past tense. Put you on a scale, you know you past 10. Claiming that you go, but okay. I'll play. Party and poppin', won't stop and dapping your escape.
So it's really interesting. Unlike the soft knee setting with the hard knee setting and the threshold being driven a bit further, you can see that there's only certain frequencies that are being affected by the compressor. It's not compressing everything, but it's selecting certain frequencies, especially in the low end, and leaving the rest untouched because you're not seeing that gain reduction happening across the board, just in specific frequency pockets. You can also hear it sounds a little bit harsher in terms of the reaction, and that makes sense. It's just a bit more of an aggressive setting, and therefore, for that reason, I actually think that I'm going to continue to roll with the soft knee setting in our original compressor because that just felt a little bit more natural and organic, but it is nice to have both options when you're compressing yourself. So now as a final step, we can evaluate our output and our quick match settings. As I mentioned before, auto gain has been enabled this whole time. However, if we play the vocal and once again pay attention to the meters at the bottom of our interface here, we can pay attention to the output and the input and see if they're matched or if there's actually a volume discrepancy between the two, and ultimately use these two settings to fix that difference.
Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's it. Decide who you're gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Past tense. Put you on a scale, you know you past 10. Claiming that you go, but okay. I'll play. Party and poppin', won't stop and dapping your escape.
So you can very clearly see that the output is louder than the input. And just because auto gain is on, it does not necessarily mean that it's going to be gain matched every single time to the input signal. While this could be okay in some situations, I think it's a good idea to level match to make sure you're not being tricked by louder levels and thinking that that is the reason why your sound is improving. Therefore, we have two options. We can manually adjust the output to try to better match the input signal and ultimately gain match them. Or to make things a bit easier, we could use the quick match setting. Basically, instead of manually adjusting the output by ear, we could use the quick match to do the hard work for us. When the button is white and moving left, we can click it to reduce the output level, which you'll see reflected on the knob. However, when the button is purple and moving right, the output will be increased when clicked. The only tricky part is the volume of your track is likely still going to fluctuate, so while the quick match setting will get us close, it's likely not going to be the exact amount that we should actually roll with. Therefore, we'll start with the quick match setting and then evaluate further by ear, potentially adjusting this even more by paying attention to the input and output meters at the bottom of our interface here. Let's play this and see what we can do.
Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's it. Decide who you're gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Past tense. Put you on a scale, you know you past 10. Claiming that you go, but okay. I'll play. Party and poppin', won't stop and dapping your escape. Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's it. Decide who you're gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Past tense. Put you on a scale, you know you past 10. Claiming that you go, but okay. I play, party and poppin', won't stop and dapping your escape.
So hopefully what I was saying about the quick match setting and the volume fluctuating earlier makes more sense now. You can actually see in this example that the earlier part of the vocal performance was actually louder, and therefore the quick match was telling us to reduce it, which I did. However, when we got to the second half of this vocal performance, when things get louder, the input was actually louder than the output, and the quick match was telling us to do the opposite, telling us to increase. So ultimately, you got to just find a middle ground between the two, as I did. I did opt to turn things down, basically doing what the quick match was suggesting in the first place. However, I compensated by adding a little bit more volume. Of course, everything is not perfectly matched still, and rarely will it ever be 100% perfect, but it's close enough where those volume differences I don't think make that big of a difference. Since we have the earlier part roughly matched pretty closely, but then the second half, the input is technically a little bit louder, but not by a whole lot, and the increase in consistency from the compressor should hopefully make up for that difference and make it a lot less noticeable. Now, the only other setting that I haven't covered in this demo is this mix setting, which is pretty self-explanatory at this point. You can use this to ultimately create a blend between your dry, unaffected signal and then your wet, compressed signal that has gone through IDX. And this could be an interesting place to do some parallel compression, for example, where you really drive things up. Use the hard setting, do a really aggressive threshold, maybe play with the tilt shelf, and then dial in a mix here to achieve the best of both worlds. In my example here, though, I'm not really trying to do that. I am trying to use this in place of my standard compressor, which is usually a bit more gentle, as you can tell. So I'm not going to be using the mix knob in this case, but it's obviously an option for you if you're curious. So now let's do a final comparison with the IDX compressor disabled, and I'm going to put it in. We can hear the difference in terms of the vocal presence and the consistency in the vocal performance. Here we go.
Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Deuce high, take me on a moon ride. Maybe when the moon's right, we can just see what's here. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Decide who you gonna be like. Wish that I could rewind just so I can see what's clear. Past tense, put you on a scale, you know you past 10. Past tense, put you on a scale, you know you past 10. Claiming that you good but okay. I play, party and poppin', won't stop and dapping your escape. Claiming that you good but okay. I play, party and poppin', won't stop and dapping your escape.
So I actually wasn't 100% sold until this demo right there, to be honest. I actually find that that second half was a lot more contained. When I played the dynamic version, those volume differences really poked out, whereas the second version I played with the compressor enabled, everything just felt a lot more in line with each other. Nothing was too excessively poking out. Obviously, some more treatment could always be done. I'm only using a compressor in this case, and if you've watched any of my vocal chain videos, you'll see that I have usually a lot of processes stacked on top of each other, each doing small moves, but ultimately I'm not relying on just one thing to do all the heavy lifting. I'm relying on 8 things to do little moves that ultimately get me to that final product. However, I do still think that this is pretty impressive on its own, and I can see how it might actually replace some of those micro processes, as I'm going to call them right now, in my future mixes, so I'm excited to continue tinkering with that and seeing what else it can do. For free, I think this is 100% worth checking out, and if you happen to be watching this later and it comes with a price tag, I think it's worth at least doing a free trial. Evaluate it in your own session, see how you like it, and see if it helps replace some of these processes for you. I'm definitely going to be tinkering with it some more and seeing if it does indeed replace those multi-band EQ sort of post processes after compression in my own sessions. Now, while I just show you how I would use this on vocals specifically, I think this plugin really does have a place in other areas of your mix. You can really apply it anywhere that you would apply a compressor: on drums, on basses, on synths, on leads, on groups, and even masters. But one way that I would really be interested in seeing how it does is on a parallel compression scenario, especially on my drum bus or even on my vocal bus, to really give me that best of both worlds between that hyper compressed and dry dynamic sound. And if you want to deep dive into parallel compression and how to pull it off in general, I'll leave a video on screen for you to watch next that covers that topic in depth. If you got value out of the video, please smash that like button, and of course subscribe if you're new to see more mixing tips like this in the future. Don't forget to hit the links down in the description and pinned comment below to get this plugin for free, or just check it out in general. And I'm looking forward to helping y'all again next time. Peace.
5